hard to explain how precious that time is when you know that you may not have it, you know, when time may run out. And that's true for anybody.
But we have this idea that we're invincible and there's always tomorrow. Well, I'll do that later. Well, what if tomorrow doesn't come?
Things that used to get under our skin and things that used to upset us, we just laugh about now. It's like, it's not cancer.
Do all you can with your children and love them and be with them as much as you can and enjoy them.
Mike and Marion Mitchum were given the most devastating news a parent can receive from a doctor, that their child had one of the most aggressive forms of leukemia and required a double-volume blood transfusion. Maddie was only 5 months old.
By double volume, I asked the doctor, what does that mean, double volume? He says, we're transfusing her entire volume of blood twice.
Childhood leukemia is a very frightening disease for the families and also for people who care for those children. Many times when a child comes in, it is a very difficult, dramatic situation with severe anemia, life-threatening anemia, high fever, bleedings. We immediately need to transfuse them, and it's very important that we have good blood bank support.
But if she hadn't had that transfusion, she would have died that night.
In a single night, the lives of the Mitchums had been turned completely upside down, and they found themselves clinging to hope and time. Immediately, Maddie began a rigorous 15-month chemotherapy program.
We had to give very high-dose chemotherapy, and she was a tiny little baby, so we had to balance everything with her. It took us several months to really make her well physically, in terms of she could start to develop and start to sit up, start to walk.
It was something watching a child go from crawling to walking with an IV pole.
Because she was only 5 months old when she was diagnosed, she didn't know the difference between a normal life of a little kid and what her life was like. So she thought everybody grew up in a hospital and that everybody had extended family of doctors and nurses and
had tubies.
Had tubies. Everybody must have tubies and get their lines flushed every night and go in for, blood and platelets. That's just a normal part of what everybody does, isn't it?
She was a beautiful little girl who learned to dance, who was always like a little chatterbox. She was a true joy.
But as fate would have it, Maddie relapsed at the end of her 15-month treatment. No longer able to use chemotherapy, Mike and Marion frantically began searching for other options for treatment. They spoke with a doctor from Duke University in North Carolina who told them about an innovative stem cell transplant that they were offering to children fighting leukemia.
She told us a little bit more about the transplant program that they had back there, and we found out that Maddie was definitely a candidate for it, and got a bunch more information. But basically, for the first time in a few months, we actually had hope again.
Ironically, around the same time the Mitchums received the good news regarding the stem cell transplant procedure, another family was at the hospital waiting for blood test results for their own daughter, also named Maddie, who had been sick.
They came in and said to us, we need to talk to you, we'll take you to another room, and we knew something was wrong when they said, you need to come with us. So we went in the room and the doctor said, it's leukemia. I can't even describe to you the feeling that we felt. Just that. And when you think of leukemia, you think of death. Because how many children make it? So we paced. We just paced together with Maddie, and we thought, what are we gonna do? He said, we're starting chemo tomorrow. We thought, chemo tomorrow? It was like this big whirlwind of craziness.
Much of their anxiety was relieved after the Bates met the Mitchums in what seemed to be more than a chance encounter.
I looked over into this room and I saw this little bald girl with a cute little dress on and pretty little sandals, and I told Joe, that is probably the cutest little bald girl I've ever seen in my life.
They said that they knew from the moment that we walked into the room that there was a reason that we met. You know, she said, I could tell right then that meeting was not an accident.
The families never imagined how important their friendship would become in the traumatic events that were to follow. The Mitchums moved to North Carolina, where Maddie Mitchum received her umbilical cord stem cell transplant at Duke University Medical Center.
Maddie went through the transplant, everything just went smooth, she just breezed through it.
After 6 weeks of living in the medical center, the Mitchums moved into a nearby apartment, spending as much time with Maddie as possible and hoping for recovery. Meanwhile, Maddie Bates began her 5-month chemotherapy program in California.
And then that's when she started needing blood and platelets. She needed blood probably once a week, but platelets she needed probably every 2 to 3 days because those deplete a lot faster. This continued for about 3 months, and then she was in remission. We took her home and then did some more chemo and got more blood and more platelets, and even when she wasn't getting chemo for a while, she would need platelets. The blood stayed, but the platelets, it just seemed like her body couldn't make them, so she was constantly in need.
Come on, Maddie, let's go!
Maddie Mitchum completed her transplant program at Duke University, and the Mitchums flew home after a 6-month stay to continue her treatment. However, the celebration was short-lived. Maddie had a small seizure and was taken to the hospital for a CAT scan, but the results were inconclusive.
She had this little lump on her back like the size of a quarter that just wasn't healing, wasn't getting bigger, wasn't doing anything, but it was just this little lump. And so her doctors at Duke talked to the doctors out here in California, and they decided that, you know, let's just biopsy it and see what's going on. And so they did that and told us the next morning, on the 14th of October, that the lump was leukemia. And so basically, instead of relapsing in her bloodstream, you know, in her bone marrow again, the leukemia had come back in the form of a tumor.
With no other viable options for treatment, the Mitchums did the only thing they could: cherish the time they had left with their daughter.
She wasn't hurting, she wasn't unhappy, everything was great. She seemed
She had
fine.
a blast at Disneyland.
Yeah, we have pictures of her at Disneyland, and she is just having a blast the whole day. The next day, she had a major seizure.
And this was just roughly 2 weeks after the first one.
After the first one, yeah.
They did a CAT scan. This time they found a tumor on the top of her head, on the right-hand side towards the back, that was about 2.5 inches across. It's huge. So we figured we were done. We went to Knott's Berry Farm and got lots of pictures. She just had a blast. She went with her 2 brothers. And by that time she couldn't walk. Her left leg just wouldn't support her anymore. And you'd go pick her up, and when you'd go to stand up, she'd say, "I can't walk, I can't walk." "I know, honey, I'll carry you." We'd pick her up, carry her around, and I'm just glad we did. We have lots of pictures, lots of memories. We got home that day, and she was tired. She just wanted us to hold her, and everybody took turns holding her, and we were pretty sure that it was getting close. And then the last day, about 10 o'clock at night, on the 28th, she died while we were holding her.
Maddie Mitchum's death sparked fear and doubt in Rochelle's mind.
Maddie Mitchum passed away, and so we had this awful feeling, just this awful feeling that something was wrong with our Maddie too. So I called the doctor and I said, we need to do tests. And we brought her in and took blood, and she called us and she said, "You were right, Maddie's cancer's back." We said, "What do we do?" And she said, "Transplant. That's all she can do."
The Bates, following in the footsteps of the Mitchums, found themselves moving to North Carolina.
we were scared but excited because we thought this is going to be it. This is what's going to heal Maddie. And we got there, and a month later she received her transplant. But in December again, she relapsed after her transplant. And so we decided to go back for another transplant, which was probably the hardest and the easiest decision we've ever had to make. You know, where you know that if you don't do it, she dies. And if you do it, she may die.
During this time, the Bates kept in constant communication with the Mitchums for guidance and support.
Maddie was just about to go into this fierce battle, and we'd be worried, just worried. There was nothing like getting on the phone and hearing somebody say, if we did it, you can do it. Just keep going. Because no matter what, you're gonna know that you did it, that you did everything you could.
Despite every effort to save her life, Maddie Bates passed away. The experience left Joe and Rochelle with a new perspective on life, to live each moment as though it were your last.
You realize when your child is sick, how precious every moment is, because you know that every moment is another moment that may be just a memory for you. And so every day we made the best of that day, because we knew there was that chance that she wasn't going to make it. And so you use every second. You know, stupid things, brushing your teeth, you enjoy it. I mean, you get the video camera out, whereas you never did before. Every day was a special occasion. The beach. I was just laying on the beach getting seashells, watching, you know, Joe and Ethan would be playing in the water, and Maddie and I would just, you know, collect shells and watch Daddy and brother play. I mean, it was just those moments that are our favorite moments because they were, you know, intimate. That's all we have now, is every single wonderful memory we made then.
Last month, on October 28th, it was 2 years ago that we lost Maddie. And, you know, it's not like it's a day you really celebrate, but it is a day that you want to commemorate, try to do something special to remember her.
This picture here, that's in the middle of the night, and she was wearing patent leather shoes. Those little black patent leather shoes. Dancing to the Wiggles at the hospital.
Yeah, more.
So we spent the day looking at some videos of Maddie, just remembering a lot of the fun times that we had together.
That was graceful.
We actually got out a box from the attic of things that we stuck in there shortly after Maddie passed away and hadn't touched since. They were just things that we couldn't give away to some other little girl. We needed to hold on to those things. And so we were able to take some of those things out and look at them and smile.
Oh.
Duke pom-poms.
Cry a little bit, but it was a chance for us to remember the special memories that we have with her.
It's a simple concept, really. Even though the Mitchums and the Bates dealt with terrible situations, they still had time to build memories with their Maddies. Perhaps that is what's so rewarding about donating blood. The time it takes to donate blood is never lost. It is only transferred from one person to another. That makes your blood donation truly a gift of life. Even though the story doesn't end the way that we had hoped, it doesn't change one important fact: that without the gift of blood, neither family would have known their child as deeply as they did.
The act of giving blood, of donating blood, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to save somebody's life. It may be just buying somebody some time. You're buying them time to create some memories.
you know, we had so much more time with her because of the ability to give her the transfusions she needed when she needed them. And, you know, if there weren't so many people out there that were dedicated to donating on a regular basis and, you know, making that blood available, we wouldn't have had those memories with her. We wouldn't have had that extra time.
Without blood, Maddie wouldn't have lived. She would have gotten the chemo and died. And so for the past 2.5 years, she's been kept alive with other people's blood, with other people's generosity. And if they wouldn't have done that, we wouldn't have had her. And even though we don't have her now, we had her for 2.5 years. Time is awesome, even if you feel like it's not on your side.
There are hundreds, if not thousands, of people touched by your simple acts of kindness. You provide hope for those who may not have it, and a lifeline for people in need. As the Mitchums and the Bates continue their lives, they will be filled with a lifetime of memories.
I thank everybody that donates blood. I just thank them from the bottom of my heart.